Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to our study group here on Monday nights, Skype Live. My name is Jona Bryndis, and we are discussing topics here that go a little deeper than the usual energy talks. We do this in the form of a workshop, almost, I would say, with sharing and really formulating sort of our personal rendering, our personal understanding of some of these spiritual or esoteric concepts that are often being discussed, be it here in the sacred self-healing community or elsewhere in the public media. So yeah, welcome. And today I would like to continue our discussion from last Monday, the human striving and what it actually is in us that cues or prompts or activates the development of our consciousness. So we've already gotten to a place where we understand that consciousness is something that we're all born with, but it seems to develop differently in each and every one of us. And it also seems to express differently. And I gave a little bit of a homework last Monday, and I said, well, think about it. What is it for you, for your personal life, that drives you, that makes you strive? Yeah, you all, at least those of you here live, I can speak for you. I'm not sure if you're watching this on YouTube, but I'm assuming that this counts for you as well. We all are driven by some kind of, seeking, I guess. Yeah, I don't want to take away anything from your sharing. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be interested in these kind of topics. And so I prompted the discussion here today with asking for what drives you. What are you striving for? And I mean this in the most practical way. This isn't a quiz, or a test. This isn't about giving the right answer. This is about the deeper inner reflection. The use, the execution of your consciousness. Within yourself. It's very personal. This is what we want to use this study group for. So what is it for you guys in your life? Have you contemplated what it is that makes you, want to improve in some way, want to develop, want to grow, want to, find out the secret of life or learn something new? What is it for you? Who wants to share?
I'll be the icebreaker. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Cindy.
So I really did contemplate this this week, and actually today too. And I didn't like the answer that I got, which was what has driven me as a human was lack. That drove everything.
Okay.
That drove my decision making, my job making, my everything. But there comes a point, there's a deeper part in me, a higher part, the consciousness part. Before I even started on this journey, that is inside of me. And when that awareness came, and I didn't even realize that that's actually what was happening, but I knew deep down that there was more than what I was experiencing. And I was being prompted to investigate that.
Okay, so some kind of prompting on one hand, yeah, something inside of you that kind of knocked on the inner door.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and kind of said, okay, find out, or how would that come to you? Like, keep going, or go further, or go deeper, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I literally came to a point, after I'd gone through a lot of younger experiences, and now I see why life is sort of set up the way it is. You have to go through certain things to have a reference point for good and bad. But I came to a point like midlife where I felt like something was terribly wrong, and it always goes back to the Matrix film, where the splinter in your mind, where yes, Dark Night of the Soul, exactly, Julianne.
Mm-hmm.
Wrong movie, what, your life, you're watching your life, all of that, and it was very strong.
Okay, I have a question for you. You said
Yeah.
something in the beginning that when you contemplated this, you found out that most of, at least what you thought was sort of driving you, was determined by lack. And you said that you didn't like that answer. Could you elaborate on that? Why do you not like that?
I don't like being driven by lack. I don't like lack consciousness within myself, although it did give me a reference point for something else. So I have to have a little bit of gratitude for that.
Okay, so what did it give you a reference point for?
That is not how I wanted to live my life, how I wanted to feel. I knew that it was a mismatch with something inside me, which now I know my consciousness is infinite, and my um, lack consciousness was so confined that, I mean, I could feel that mismatch. Like,
Let's be little bit practical here, Cindy. When you talk about my lack consciousness, okay, so you're assuming that everybody knows what that is. How does this, or did this, or is this playing out in your life? What is lack consciousness in your life?
so lack consciousness was always related for me to worthiness, whether I felt like I was worthy of whatever. It could be not enough of something. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't enough. There wasn't enough. Um, Scarcity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, let's see what else. Financial. Yeah, I was always paycheck to paycheck until I could figure out that once I work with abundance and tap into a much higher frequency, there's more than enough of everything for everybody, including myself.
Okay. Okay. So you just said it yourself. The lack that you experienced probably early in your life, that's usually how this goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's some kind of some kind of trauma around experiencing lack. Yeah? Not enough money, not enough love, not enough support,
Yes.
things like this, has driven you for at least half your life, you said, the midpoint of your life. And the drive then expressed in not wanting to experience that again, right?
Yeah.
So let's just differentiate here. So there's different kinds of drive or being driven. There's a drive that comes, and we call this from the ego. Yeah, it's an ego drive that defines itself through some kind of pain or negative experience that we do not want to experience again. Yeah, a feeling or an experience that we're trying to avoid. Yeah, and this is not always lack for everybody, but in your case, very beautiful how you described this, Cindy. very much to the point. I guess many of us here can relate to that. But you just worked out, as you were sharing, you just worked something out. Yeah, namely the resolution. Yeah, the resolution, yeah, is or not the resolution maybe in a practical sense, but at least the antidote. Yeah, the very thing that you maybe should align yourself to in order to get where you want to be or where what you want to experience. So instead of going against what you don't want to experience, you begin to realize that that which you want to experience is possible. What
Yes.
is that? What is that you want to experience?
Abundance in all forms.
Abundance. Okay, so you learned abundance through lack.
Yes.
Okay, and I like how you said that. I guess everything had to, kind of line up in this way so that so that you could go through all this and come to this insight.
Yes.
This is your consciousness in action. This is consciousness. All right, it forms through these kind of contemplations and, well, consequently the experiences and the realignment that occurs within us, as we are going through experiences and reflect on them and realize, oh, wait, all my life I have been fighting against something or tried to avoid something. How about I try a different way? Yeah, and you shared with us here that you found out, yeah, you found out what you could do instead. You could align yourself to abundance and recognize that there's more than enough for yourself and everybody. Yeah, and that is something to strive for. That is something worthy to strive for. So we just came up with two different versions of drive. One that is linked to the ego, and that has to do with avoiding a negative feeling or certain kind of pain. And the other kind of drive is a drive that holds us or prompts us to strive for more, to work towards something instead of working against something that we don't want. This is super, super, super important. This is consciousness in action, guys. The only way to come to this conclusion that Cindy just shared is through turning on your consciousness. Now, it's already there. The question is, what is it that we need in our life, be it as an experience, as an impulse, or sometimes it comes in form of a download or an activation, yeah, to get to this insight. And this is what I want to investigate with you. How can we come to these higher level or higher vibratory insights? What are the mechanics of that? If we understand how we can get to this level of understanding, yeah, the mysteries of life. Yeah, last time we talked about true love and, all these things that, that bother us every day, that scare us or that, create all the worries in us. Freedom, ability to discern truth. Remember, we talked about the sunflower. Yeah, that has to make some really important choices. The sunflower seed, better say. Yeah, what kind of soil does it want to settle itself in? What kind of light source is it going to align itself to? What kind of water? Yeah, what kind of conditions does it need to bring itself into its highest expression? So let's hear some more examples of what drives us, what has driven us, and you can already include the differentiation here, yeah, the ego drive, which is something that, you know, tries to avoid something, you know, avoid some kind of negative experience or feeling, and the striving drive, the strive, not the strive, but the, you know, that which drives you to wanting to become more, to wanting to become your higher expression. Any more examples or insights?
For me, Jona, when I was little, it was really about seeking the mysteries to life. That's when I was I knew that I didn't fit in, and I knew that the world that I was in was very strange and odd, and I knew there was a lot more to it. And yeah, so it was really a seeking to uncover the mysteries of life. I had my first astrology book when I was like 12 or something. And just like laying out on the driveway and looking up at the stars and just thinking, well, you know, like, what's going on here? You know, like, where, how's all this work? And who are all these strange people I'm surrounded by? And yeah, it was more a search for the mysteries of life. And then as I got older, in my early 20s, you know, I had a traumatic relationship that really made me seek for answers at that point
Mm-hmm.
that I wasn't getting in the mainstream.
So the seeking for the mysteries of life. So that's something that we could probably call curiosity, right? That's an impulse, yeah, that we can feel when there's something we don't understand. Is that right? I mean, if our life is simple and everything that we experience is, you know, easy to understand, there's not really that big of an impulse there to investigate things, right?
Yeah, it was definitely a curiosity for sure. Yeah.
So, I mean, if you look at your life, okay, this seeking for the mysteries or seeking to understand the mysteries of life has taken up a tremendous amount of time and space and energy in your life. It's a very, very strong power that is working through you there, right?
Oh, yeah, it's taken up most of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's extremely powerful. So that's why we're investigating this, right? Because if we can understand the mechanics of that, if we can understand what the mystery of the mystery, if you will, yeah, then we can begin to apply it more consciously. Now, you also mentioned, Jared, that there was something about you not fitting in. Um, you haven't had a traumatic experience in a relationship. So let's put this together somehow. You go ahead.
Um, so do you mean relate the early childhood curiosity and wanting to know a bigger picture of the small, like a macrocosm, the microcosm I find myself in, and relate that to the
Mm-hmm.
trauma experience that I had?
Yeah, I mean, there was something that must have triggered, you know, you trying. You always, you said you always felt like you weren't fitting in. So this is
Yeah.
what I'm logging onto.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm logging
Yeah.
onto you saying I'm not. I felt like early in my life, I felt like I wasn't fitting in.
Yeah, I was like a round peg in a square hole, really. Um, it was all very strange to me when when I was little. All the systems that I found myself in, whether it was schooling or, you know, Sunday school or the family that I was in. It was all very strange, and I
So
never understood any of it.
you experienced other humans as different from yourself.
Completely. Yeah, very foreign.
Mm-hmm. And then you had a traumatic experience in a relationship where what did you experience there? How did that contribute?
Well, after from my childhood, where I was completely foreign and didn't fit in, I was the black sheep of the family and
Mm-hmm.
black school and black sheep everywhere I went, basically. But then as I got older, like into my late teens, I kind of made myself fit into whatever this,
Okay.
I kind of, you know, made myself kind of fit in as best I could because I had to.
Mm-hmm.
What else could I
Mm-hmm.
do? And I think I was beginning to move away from some of the mysteries and stuff. And then this karmic relationship happened. It was extremely traumatic and very dark. And it made me like rethink. It really forced me to re-examine some of the stuff that I'd gotten away from when I was younger. That's how I'm thinking it happened.
Mm-hmm. So there was this need to belong, this need to somehow fit in, and as you were trying to fit in, maybe by what you said, I like how you said this, made myself fit in somehow, right? You tried to adjust to whatever you experienced there as a strangeness. The further away you developed, or the further away you got from really understanding yourself, perhaps.
Yeah, well, there's nowhere to fit in, so
Mm-hmm.
there was no congruent group or person, or there might have been other kids around me who were in a similar sort of state, and there were, but there was nowhere in society to fit in. So I had to. It felt for me, maybe it's a very unnatural process of trying to force myself to fit
Mm-hmm.
into mainstream
Yeah.
society, So yeah, and that takes effort and energy and a lot of denial and pushing
Yeah,
stuff
the
down.
formation of a false self somehow, right? We're trying to like make ourselves, but there is no better way to describe it than you did. We're trying to make ourselves fit in, right? And in the process, obviously losing parts of ourselves, perhaps, or giving parts of ourselves away. Hmm. But you continued your journey. So you said something about karmic relationships. So you recognized that this was part of, like, I guess, some greater training program.
At the time, yeah, it was extremely intense. So I mean, it was clearly to me at that point, it was a karmic relationship
Mm-hmm.
because of the intensity of it, and it developed into something that was extremely traumatizing for everybody that was around my ex-partner, but me in particular, because I kind of was the white knight who was in there trying to save the day. And that made me revisit all of those curiosities. It because I had to find some answers out then. I was at like a critical point where, okay, now I need to know. There's no getting away from this anymore. I got to it. Now I've got to know, and I would go to any lengths to find out. And that set me on my journey. Basically, joined a meditation group, studied astrology, did all my exams. Um, the rest is history.
Yeah, isn't it? It's interesting how this all lines up, right? So it's all these traumatic experiences in our lives that somehow, in hindsight, we can see how they played a major role in the development of our consciousness. Not at the time, of course. At the time, we try to avoid them, and we try to, you know, make sure it doesn't happen again, or something like that. What I'm seeing here in what you're sharing, Jared, is that uh, the the drive for you. Yeah, first the drive clearly, and this is something again, I'm sure many of us can relate to. You try to make yourself fit in. Yeah. You try to become something, maybe an idealized version of yourself. Yeah. And that didn't work out. And then as a consequence of that, it was like a grounding or like a reset, I think you said, something like that, where you had to revisit all of that with a new perspective. Yeah, maybe a little more sober perspective, perhaps. Yeah. And that drive is to understand yourself, to understand what you are. Does this make sense? Yeah, so there's no better drive or lesser drive. It's just important for us that we understand what it is that we're driven by. And there's a sort of a shadow side to this. Yeah, there's the avoidance part, there's the fear part, and then there's the abundance part, yeah, the higher vibratory part. So the lower vibratory part is the part that our ego uses as, sort of activation of basic energy, yeah, emotional energy, intellectual energy, social energy, and tries to translate that into what it believes, the ego, what it believes to work the best. And it is then through, well, I guess you could say failure of that, it not working out, it not getting us where we feel that we are, that this impulse is satisfied. Yeah, I'm trying to be very neutral here in my expressions. That then makes us go farther. It makes us seek more. It makes us, sort of pass by all these other things that, perhaps seem easy at first, shortcuts. It makes us pass by those, and say, well, no, tried that already, didn't work. Tried that already, didn't work. Some of us have to go through endless repetition of that until we get to a place where we realize that what it actually is that we're seeking is something completely different from what we thought. So what we all have in common here as humans with this consciousness, this inherent consciousness, yeah, is that we want to understand how things work, including how we work, how the world works. You used the word macrocosmic, how the universe works. And somewhere there, some aspect of that is to understand our part in all of this, trying to understand ourselves in that. So someone who feels very satisfied and safe and whatever, like settled, so to speak, in their environment, will have less of a drive trying to understand how the universe works than someone who feels they're not fitting in, or of course, there's probably a tremendous amount of questioning oneself at first, because if everybody else is different than you, obviously at first we think there's something wrong with us. I don't know, you didn't particularly mention this, Jared, but that's how it goes for most people, is that they question themselves. It's got to be something wrong with me. And then as they make all these negative experiences with others, they realize, no, wait, no, it can't just all be me. There's also something wrong with others. Which
That's
then...
very, and then also there's along the way, especially when I was little, there was a lot of inner promptings, like with dreams and mystical experiences, and it was like, it was like part of me was tapping into this 3D reality to let me know that to keep my curiosity and keep me moving forwards in that direction. So
that's very important to note. Okay. Because that's also something that is part of our reality. We all know this. Most of us here have had something that we would probably call spiritual experiences when we were younger, without maybe seeing them as such when we had them. But in hindsight, we can see that those are clearly things that were coming from a different part of us, not necessarily the 3D part of us. So some kind of spiritual impulse in us. Now, some of us don't have that. Some of us are guided through the outer experiences. Some of us are guided through inner experiences, and most of us have somewhat of a combination of both. So let's just keep that on the side right now, because I want to later discuss with you guys what you think the difference is. Like how it comes that some people have these kind of spiritual impulses early in life, whereas others have that later in life. Let's just keep going here for a moment and discuss different variations of this. Does anybody else want to share? We had lack as an ego drive that then led or can lead a person into understanding abundance. We had not fitting in as an ego drive that can lead a person to wanting to understand themselves and the world, the universe, the bigger sort of picture. What are some other examples? Did anyone here experience fear at an early stage in life? Tremendous amount of fear. Perhaps even, sort of a physical trauma of some kind.
Jona, if I can jump in here, it's something that only came up recently that I realized the connection with relating to fear.
Yeah, go ahead.
Down to the level of I've always struggled breathing, and as a child, I nearly drowned at birth.
Okay.
And that connection has been interesting how that played out in various cycles through my life, this feeling of not being able to breathe.
Interesting.
But that was a deep one, that like right to the when I came into this world, my first experience, and seeing that trauma repeats itself in various ways down into nearly drowning in the ocean. Later on in my life enabled me to sort of step back and be the observer and be more curious. So, but that was a fear I've always had, is this something sitting on my chest, can't breathe.
And how has this played out in your life? What have you observed? Like, how did your ego try to cope with that?
Well, the ego tried to always logicalize, but I couldn't override the feeling of that fear of lack of breath. And breathing through that fear, because it was more, I don't know, that fear was more ego driven than heart driven. It was just an experience that I had. It didn't need to repeat itself.
Right.
But
that's why the ego first kicks in. The ego first tries to handle it.
Yes.
It says, okay, I'm handling this, and I'm going to avoid anything like that. I don't know if that was the case in your case, but I'm going to avoid going in the water, or I'm going to avoid any kind of situation that could restrict my breath. Something like that. I could see claustrophobia, for example, as a consequence of that. Like partially physical responses, to when things get too close up, maybe even sort of in relationships, not really being able to be really close to somebody. It's completely subconscious, obviously, and it's not rational at all. But that's one of the hallmarks of the ego, is that it's not rational at all. It may come up with rationalizations, but that doesn't mean it's rational.
Correct. So that was my fear coming through.
Yeah, how did it play out? Like, did you avoid water or?
No, not at all. I love water. I mean, water's.
So
that's
that
the
wasn't
irony.
the issue. Okay.
No, but that feeling of breathlessness, getting squeezed. You know what I mean? And thinking, and then activating, flight or fight.
Did this play out in your relationships?
Played out in relationships, business relationships, family relationships, of course. But then being able to observe it and then not be under it. It still comes up, but it doesn't rule the emotions.
Yeah, that's in the consciousness. Right? The consciousness is able to bypass that.
Correct. So. But just recognizing it and being kind to myself, and seeing the patterns and seeing how this is my life's been a bit of a journey, not of the patterns repeating themselves, but not in the logical way, in the heart way, or the intuitive way, or you know what I mean. That consciousness scenario.
Like giving yourself more space to breathe, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, now I don't have that feeling anymore, because if it does come up, I know it's okay, but it's not me. You know what I mean?
It's just your ego. It's just your ego trying to kick in.
It's being that observer of it, being able to observe my world in the bigger picture versus in that moment of fight or flight or fear or whatever.
So you zoom out, basically. Is that how you do it?
Yeah.
Symbolically, one could say you give yourself more space to breathe.
Yeah. And then I know that there's a moment past that, whatever there's this feeling that's coming up. It's like a given now. In the past, I used to fight for it. Now I just go, okay, that's coming up. We'll take the next breath. But then I'm curious of why it's come up. It's a curiosity. It's like, what are you showing me?
Yeah. So the curiosity is something that goes, that weaves through all our consciousness, and we can clearly say that is something how our consciousness expresses, on whichever level it is. I'd be interested to know if you have an awareness of what this has helped you better understand, or how this has helped you or guided you to sort of the antidote, like when we talked about Cindy's experience in the beginning, where she said she can identify clearly it was lack that has driven her all her life. in your case, that would be the fear of not having enough space to breathe or not being able to breathe. And then later she was able to reframe that into, you know, helping her to understand what abundance is. Yeah, the antidote. Can you
Yeah,
see the role of that?
I resonated 100% with what Cindy said. She said it so beautifully. In just, yeah, seeing that abundance is past those boundaries of fear. As I say, it's the fear that was the false perception. And I mean, the way Cindy summed it up, yeah, Matrix was a movie that triggered me as well to go, I can resonate with this, and there's something in it, you know.
So you realize there is enough air to breathe.
Plenty.
Spoken. There's enough air to breathe. You just got to give yourself, I don't know, the time. Do you think this has to do with giving yourself the time to breathe? Yeah, is it a slowing down maybe that you've
Very
had?
much so. That is very, very much so. Slow down.
Okay.
Slow down into the moment. Ground.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's yeah. You have to slow down. You know.
Because you also mentioned the heart, right? So there's something about that, you know, slowing down and, you know, breathing through the heart. That those are things that create a lot of space. But when the ego dominates the perception, yeah, or the drive, then it's hardly possible, because then it's like a hardwired reaction. So
Correct.
consciousness could heal that in your case. Did you also learn how to meditate? Were you prompted to do these kind of sort of mindfulness things?
Very much so. Well, I actually learned to meditate on a dance floor.
On the
Sounds
dance
crazy.
floor? Yeah. Okay. Oh, explain that.
Where there was so much noise that I had to get in to feel the music.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You know, it was like it was a space where I could get back into music and feel the music. But as I explained to people, it was meditation by overloading the noise, and especially the sound of feeling that sound vibration go through my body. That was one of the big things. So
Are you a musician?
no, not at all. I just love music.
Okay.
I'm married to a musician, but no, it's just it was a weird discovery that I found, you know, and then from there being able to take it from that space through into you know, doing it in silence, you know, and then now enjoying the silence over a 10-year period.
Okay.
But yeah, meditation, yeah, very.
Yes.
But a weird journey. I didn't go to a meditation class. I stumbled across meditation. And then I suddenly realized when I was meditating, I think a lot of us meditate when we're driving, especially long distance driving. There's a space of you can zone out.
For me, there is. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and just experience on the road the next frame of reference and the mountains and the trees and the, you know, while you're lost in thought. You know, so those were the meditative techniques that I identified that and then tried to do it as much as possible.
So they could help you. So they helped you to get out of your head, basically. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
And then consequently, you know, to discover something like a heart, you know, that there's something there. So in your case, yeah, if I would to just sort of rephrase this now, you know, the drive, yeah, to get more breath, yeah, to get more breath, okay, allowed you to find out, yeah, through your curiosity, that there's a different way of breathing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Instead of, doing it through the nervous system, basically. Yeah, that is prompted by thoughts. Oh my God, I'm running out of breath. Oh my God, there's not enough. Yeah, to slow down enough and allow you, and with the help of music. So that's also very cool. Yeah, personal touch. Yeah, important. These little things are sometimes important because they show us something. It's like signposts, about our own personal journey. That's not the same. This is very individual. It's very unique. How this goes for each and every one of us. Yeah, that is a way for you to get more breath and to understand that there's more space and that there is more there. So you guys see, it's not about solutions or fixes here when it comes to tapping into our higher consciousness. It's about finding new ways. Yeah, so I'm sure we are all still working on, the resolutions, but the reality that we find ourselves dealing with, and that's also a reference here to the Matrix movies, really depends on with which eye we're looking at it. Yeah, so if we're looking at the world, let's say through Cindy's ego eyes, yeah, scarcity, there's not enough, yeah, then obviously the world appears as a very, sort of restricted place, yeah, a very, narrow path, yeah, in which we have to take things away from others, perhaps, or where there's never enough for us. If we see the world through, let's say, Jared's ego eyes at the time, where, the world is kind of like a mystery and it doesn't fit to myself, yeah, and there's no space for me in this world, then the world appears as quite threatening, yeah, attacking perhaps. And if we look at the world through Matthew's ego eyes, yeah, there's not enough space, not enough air to breathe for me. Yeah, then the world again appears, yeah, the reality that we then sort of tap into through looking at the world through these eyes, as also again very restricted and hostile. It isn't until we look at the world with our higher consciousness, okay, that we can begin to see that that's then, I think, Jared, you said this, like a false perception, that that's an illusion, that the way our ego sees the world is clearly an option. We can clearly look at things this way because our experience is real. But just because it's real doesn't mean it's true. Yeah, because if we look at it through these eyes, then it is very, very real. Never forget this, guys. Don't disregard or diminish, yeah, the false reality that you experienced at some point, because it's very real. And when you begin to work on consciously developing your consciousness, yeah, then you will have to admit to yourself that you can still tap into these eyes. You can still look at the world through your ego eyes, and it will again look exactly the same way it looked back then. Do you guys know what I mean? Yeah. No matter how far developed you are in your consciousness, the ego can take over any second. Has this happened to any one of you? That you can still sort of sometimes slip into this world, yeah, into this ego world where all you can see is the negativity and the scarcity or the hostility or the restrictiveness, yeah, that can happen any minute, any second. So now comes the question, how to harness that, how to master that. Matthew, you said a few things about the process of getting yourself out of this. So you now have something like confidence almost. It sounded to me like you have a confidence that when you get into this restricted place, that you can get out of it. Would you like to share a little bit more about that? How that goes for you? What are the thoughts that are going through your head? Let's say in that moment where you get triggered, yeah, where your ego gets triggered, where you feel again that there is no breath.
Yeah, I pull the ripcord to reset. It's
Okay.
like an instant when my body starts feeling, your ego is very subtle. It takes over the whole thing subtly. But the minute my body starts feeling, oops, out of alignment, then I try and pull the ripcord and, go to reset and take 3 breaths. And, and try and reset in the moment, even if it's in a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Being confident enough to actually say, I'm not, something's out of alignment, reset.
Something like this is just a dream. This is not really happening right now. This is just like something like that.
Or yeah, more of a memory. Some things. Well, you can pick it up with energies of other people. If someone suddenly gets into fear or something, or I try and just go back to neutral. My opinion doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Go back to neutral and not get pulled into something that I don't actually want to engage with in that part of my ego. It's not my creative heart, if I can put it in those words.
What I hear you say is that it helps you to discern truth.
Correct.
It has helped you to discern that better. What is not good for you, what does not give you enough air to breathe, and what does.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So this is the insight, that follows when you walk down this path, when you investigate, how this has all played out in your life, and what you actually gained from this. The problem with us humans is that while we all have this sort of divine spark, this consciousness as a seed in us, it does require certain triggers. It does require certain experiences, to form a strong enough drive to get us past our ego. And unfortunately, for most of us, this occurs through trauma, through pain, through fear, through the experience of darkness. So when you get to a certain point, neutrality, as you mentioned, Matthew, is a really important keyword here. When you get to a point where you can, distance yourself from that impulse in you that wants to like or dislike things, that just sort of reacts from a standpoint of sympathy and antipathy, something that is programmed into us as an instinct. Basically judgment, the judgment. Take any topic nowadays, be it climate change or war or global finances or health, whatever issue, you want to take, okay? And watch or observe yourself how you are judging, like whatever person you see talking or listen to, or what kind of sort of opinion other people utter, how you feel about this. This is how you can practice. The first step into neutrality is to say, okay, this is this person's opinion. This is this person's view. Okay. Whether or not I agree or disagree with it has no relevance right now. What's more important for me is to fully understand what's behind this. So let's take one of these topics. Climate change. Here within the Sacred Self-Healing community, we just had a 2-part workshop series about that. There's many different factors that need to be investigated to fully understand the scope of these environmental changes that are occurring right now. If we don't investigate this for ourselves, we might just go with, whomever we like better, who's has an opinion, or what we hear more often, our ego has a tendency to normalize and to familiarize itself with things. So the more often it hears something, the more likely it is going to like it, if you believe it or not. That's how a lot of the mind control and public opinion making happens, through just mere repetition. So the more often you hear it, this from hit songs on the radio, the more often they play it, the more familiar you are with a certain song, the more you're going to like it. Yes, and then comes the intellect into this. Here, Cindy, since you're mentioning confirmation bias, your intellect then says, oh yeah, I heard this so many times, this must be true because I heard this so many times. And then, you take an information no longer from the perspective of your consciousness, but from the perspective of your ego, which is, based on how many times you've heard it, or who has said it, or maybe also, what kind of sort of social status is linked to this, political correctness and so forth. So these are the big dangers nowadays in our societies, because we're dealing with the challenges in this society, in this information society, that were never there before, and that is that we have a multitude of information accessible for us, but we have never learned how to discern information. So that's why social media and so forth are so dangerous for our psyche, because they just keep bombarding us. When I talk about social media, I don't necessarily talk about Facebook. I'm talking about anything that we see on our phones, including the news, the prefabricated news that is based on algorithms that come from your browsing history. That is all part of social media. So, we have this issue now with all the electronics that we're using, that are geared to creating a confirmation bias in you, which makes it impossible for you to detect error. You can no longer detect error because the information that is being played to you, is pre-selected based on what you already like. So that's really important to understand about, how the distribution of information works nowadays. So social media is basically a spoon feeding, and that is motivated by advertisement and so forth. Yeah, so these algorithms, there's no conspiracy to this. It's just the way it works. If you don't know that, and if you believe that whatever you get in your Twitter feed or news feed is, actual neutral news, then you just don't understand the technology. Not everybody will develop the interest in that technology, but it would still be advisable, in this day and age, to always investigate the source of information, any kind of information, including the mystical information. So let's talk about the mystical part here a little bit. Yeah, so we've investigated, the interplay between ego and consciousness, and they both exist. Yeah, they basically show a different level of development. Yeah, the ego is a fail-safe, as I often call this. Yeah, so we all have the ego, in order to psychically survive our early developmental stages. Now, some people never develop out of that in one lifetime, and other people are being forced out of the avoiding pain and seeking pleasure paradigm, which is the which are the hallmarks, the pillars of the ego awareness, through pain, through trauma, through the confrontation with darkness. Overall, if we look at the development of human consciousness over the history of time, is at least sort of what we know to be the history of time, we can see that every era sort of had a different challenge. And most of that had to do with the distribution of information. We know that in the old days, information was owned by, not just owned, also created by just a few, simply because most of the population was illiterate. Yeah, for the longest time, us all being able to read and write is a fairly new occurrence. Yeah, and later, since the World Wide Web, since the internet, we have a completely new situation for humanity where, information is freely available to everybody. This was not the case, not even when I was in college. Yeah, so all these are new conditions, for our societies that we need to put into account. And all these different conditions, so as conditions change, they help us, as humanity, as clustered in our different societies, to refine, to learn something, to develop something. So if we look at the mechanisms of, how our consciousness is getting triggered and how it then expresses through a continual drive, to understand something, to solve the mystery of something, including, the type of mystery that we are experiencing, we are beginning to grow in consciousness, even though it doesn't look that way right now. I know that many are convinced that humans are devolving at this point in time. If you read history books, then you read letters or essays from philosophers at certain times in history, then you will always find this concern about the state of consciousness of humanity declining. But overall, there has been a noticeable growth in overall consciousness. So let's then investigate what it is that we need today and what it helps us to gain or to better understand. Go ahead, Tippy. Did you want to share something?
Sorry, I just moved.
Oh no, that's fine. That's fine. So what
No,
are you?
but it is quite interesting, and most of the things relate to me as well.
Mm-hmm.
Just going deeper into meditation and deeper into myself. So yeah, it is a journey.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, we all have a journey, whether we are aware
Yeah.
of it or not. Right. The interesting part is to look at these signposts and these different sort of trigger points or relays of information that have guided us along and that have provided us with input, yeah, be it through learning something with our intellect or learning something through relationships or learning something through some kind of spiritual insight. Yeah, so all of these are different sources of information, yeah, that are available to us. The question is, how aware are we of those, and how can we access them more consciously? So coming back to the question that I just had was, what do you think is the biggest issue right now? The biggest challenge for us?
I think for me, it's just learning from the mistakes I'm making again and again.
Okay.
So it's just learning, why am I making those mistakes, which I shouldn't be.
Okay.
But as well as understanding that, yes, those are the things I need to learn, and those are the things I need to get through the wave, basically, as I put it. I need to get through the wave to the other side. Yeah.
Well, we just kind of learned, actually, that whatever we perceive as mistakes at the time, are very important signposts.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned patterns, like, things that are repeating. What have you noticed as a pattern in your personal life?
So it's like in the beginning, like from childhood, like I have been seeing all this, what can I say? How can I say? Like, like demons and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think somewhere in between, things stopped, and then it started coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the last 3 years, things have gone better from learning about spirituality and
Okay.
getting to know better, because relationships, a relationship is just with family and stuff like that. I haven't had another relationship after
Mm-hmm.
my husband. I haven't had a relationship, so in a way it's good, because but also in other relationships I find it is hard sometimes to kind of keep that relationship rolling through and kind of keeping them.
Let me come back to the demons. And that from childhood on, what you said. Did this first kind of make you not wanting to go into the spirituality of things out of fear, perhaps?
No, I think there was this dreams. I used to get really, really weird dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I couldn't tell anybody. I couldn't tell my parents.
Right.
My parents were very strict, so I wouldn't say.
Mm-hmm.
But later on in life, after after I became a widow, things were getting worse and worse. So one day I said to somebody, I said, "Oh, I'm getting this weird dreams, and I don't know who is this person in my dreams who keeps on coming."
Oh, so it's something that repeats.
Yeah, it was repeating quite, like, it was always there. And I don't know whether this person was following me, or I didn't know what it was, like, And then somebody said, it is somebody following you, but it isn't a demon. But when I used to look at it, I felt that I couldn't trust this person or whoever it was, I couldn't. And then it went away. And so since then, it hasn't come back. But then I think 2 years ago, somebody said, yeah, I had demons on myself and whatever, and they can get rid of it. And I thought, And then I went for that thing, and I thought, And only a few days ago, I was just thinking, all these things people say, it isn't what it is. It's just for me to learn to kind of,
Yeah, maybe.
it's
Yeah.
just learning, like from your classes and stuff, I learned that we have to get out of it ourselves rather than somebody else helping us get out
Ultimately,
of
yes.
it.
I mean, there are
Yeah.
situations where, we may not have the
Mm,
power to do this,
mm,
where we need the help from others.
mm. Yeah.
Yeah. But ultimately,
Mm,
we've had discussions about demons
mm,
in different contexts before, and there's so much to learn about this and from
mm,
this. Okay, like
mm,
obviously what we call demons
mm,
really mostly aren't.
mm,
So this is something that I would recommend you hear.
mm.
To continue your path on
Yeah.
learning more about this. Okay, so
Mm,
uh, our ego fears what it doesn't understand, guys.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all of you
Yeah.
guys. This is very, very important.
Mm,
And the more we actually take these things that we're afraid of, that we don't understand, as an impulse to learn about them,
mm,
yeah, the more we can learn how to work through our fears. Yeah,
yeah.
the ego
Mm,
fears the unknown. Yeah, and that
mm.
is what makes the ego strong, Dippy.
I
Okay,
know.
because the
Yeah.
unknown is, yeah, like what
Mm,
happens to us after death, or
mm,
like the big unknown, right? All these kind of questions that we cannot answer. All right,
mm,
that is what makes the ego basically fall into its coping mechanisms. And
mm,
the coping mechanisms aren't all bad, but they're
mm,
often not appropriate. So when we find, maybe they were appropriate at the time,
mm,
the first time, yeah. So I can relate to you, to what you're saying,
mm,
seeing all these demonic things. And
mm.
when you're young, yeah, like how old were you when you first became aware of that?
I think I must be about 4 or 5. I
Yeah,
think
so
it
what can
started
you do
quite
as a
young.
4 or 5
Yeah.
year old?
Yeah.
Nothing.
You can't do anything.
No, you were like a powerless little girl,
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you do anything,
No,
to
I
deserve
didn't. I
it?
would be scared and just
Yeah,
like,
it's just scared.
so,
Yes.
yeah, it would be so scary and whatever. But then in later life, like in the last few years, I've learned. But then there are people around who it's just like they would say, okay, we'll get rid of this stuff for you. And this is how much you need to pay. And I thought, okay. And
Yeah,
I
I mean,
did it. I did it. I'm not saying I didn't. I did it. And then it was still not good. So I thought, okay, I have to work on myself and then to do the shadow work and stuff like that. So,
mhm.
yes, I am learning very slowly, but
So so you're
surely.
learning that other people, that there are
Mm,
things in life need
mm,
that you need to work through. In a
yes.
way that you have to take responsibility for, not that you caused it. There's nothing
Mm,
in you that
yeah.
caused,
Mm,
these visions to be there, but it
mm,
triggered enough of, um, let's say, discomfort,
mhm,
okay, for you to seek something. Yeah, and it is
Yeah.
normal, and I think again we can all relate to this, that you know that we have to kiss a few frogs, you know, that we have
Yes.
that we're trying a few things.
Mm.
Yeah, obviously, you know, having somebody else take care of stuff is sometimes, you know, the first thing that comes to mind. Yeah, it's kind of innocent to a certain degree. But
Mm.
when it comes to those kind of things, like demons from childhood on, or let's just call it demonic visions, okay?
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's not personify it. You know, then this is something else, Dippy. You know, it's not something that, you know, you brought in or you brought on yourself. It's not something that you need to feel guilty for. It is something that is there for a reason. Okay,
Yeah.
now we haven't really mentioned this yet because, you know, that's the mystical part. What if it's something that we brought in from a past life? What if something, well, Jared mentioned karmic relationship. What is it? What if it's something that has to do with a certain karma?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, if we want to investigate this, then we have to clarify what karma is and so forth. And
Yeah.
I've done this on other occasions, and we can gladly talk about this next Monday in the study group, but this would go too far. This would make it too long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I understand. I understand that part as well. And
Mm-hmm.
then following it, then it kind of affected the health part as well. So then I thought, oh, this is all connected, but it isn't connected. It
Well,
is all like I'm looking at it now as like
it
even
can be.
kind of.
It's possible that it's connected. You know, if you look at what it made your ego drive become. Yeah. So I don't know if you can see this. If you look back, as what are the consequences of you feeling that you are somehow, let me just, you didn't say this, but let me just say that, like how I experienced this, that you're somehow possessed, you know, by this stalker demon or whatever. How do you think this affected your life?
It was very scary
So it made
at
you
that
become a
time.
fearful
At that time,
person. It made you
yeah,
become a fearful person, would you
yeah,
say?
yeah. I have always been very fearful, but in the past few years, I have kind of got over that fear. Kind of, it has come out, and I'm not as fearful as I was before. So
But
it's in a way, it's become better. And then
that's
attending
wonderful.
these, yeah, attending your classes as well, your this group
But
classes as well.
overall, right, it has dominated your life with fear, right?
Yeah, it had, yeah, it
And
was
maybe,
really.
and I fully understand what you're talking about. Okay, so
Mm,
and
mm.
the Cindy is commenting on this as well. She thought she was
Oh,
dark,
okay.
bad. You know, she saw all she saw was darkness. I had the exact same
Yeah.
thought
Mm,
process as a kid, and about the
mm,
same age as you. You know,
mm.
it's what was I, like a little girl? You know, thinking I didn't even know
Yeah,
what demons were. I didn't even have any
yeah.
kind of uh, word for this. Yeah, I just thought
Mm,
everything is the world is a dark place, and I'm surrounded
mm,
by these terrible, scary things, and
mm.
right, and it made me become a fearful person. Yeah,
Yeah.
afraid of
Mm,
life, afraid of the world. Yeah.
mm.
Now, as a consequence of that, do you think that maybe you've externalized your powers a bit too much to other people,
I
wanting
did.
to
Yeah, I did
fix
at
things?
the time. Yeah, I did, but I've stopped all that now.
No,
I
and
said
that's
in.
like finding new ways. That's what I
Mm,
want to get at. That is then
mm,
basically the result of our suffering. Yeah. So the
mm,
result of our suffering is that we, at
mm,
some point in our life, hopefully, yeah, if we are able to follow this impulse, get to
mm,
this place, to this insight that we realize
mm,
I cannot do this anymore because that is not what
mm.
allows me to thrive.
Yeah.
So it is here just to come to a little bit of a conclusion for this talk, because I don't want it
Mm,
to go too long. It is
yeah.
something that we can now see is in some
Mm,
mystical way. It is through our confrontation with the dark, through the confrontation with the untruth, with the unlove, with the unfreedom in this world, that plays an instrumental role in us developing consciousness, in us feeling triggered enough and feeling courageous and curious enough to do something about it, to strive for something. And it is common and normal and part of our human condition, just so you all know, that we will first follow our ego drive, which is sort of the quick fix. So if you're if your suffering is that the world is a fearful place, and that you are helpless and powerless, then obviously the ego will suggest to find people with power, to find people who can do it for you. In your case. Or in this just another variation. It's a normal impulse to first try to fix it through whatever appears to be the fastest solution. At the time, when you were 4 years old, and I feel very sad that you couldn't share this, which most of us here have experienced. We were all alone with this. This is another component of this, the loneliness that also comes from experiencing such things, especially those mystical things. At the time, allowing somebody else to make decisions for you or fix things for you, that was a totally appropriate way of coping with a fearful world as a 4-year-old, right? Or up until a certain age. But then as a fully grown conscious self, that then begins to backfire, right? Because I don't know if this is the same in your life, but in my life, it was like I found myself in places where I had given up my power to others that were basically, producing more and more suffering in my life. So clearly not what was conducive for me.
Same here. So I can.
And that then triggered the
Mm.
impulse, to say I have to break free from that. I have to take things into my own hands. So it is those negative experiences that we need to muster the energy to wanting to break through them. This is very, very important for all of us to understand. Not in the sense of we brought it on ourselves or, it's all our fault. No, but in the sense of like understanding what this confrontation with darkness, let's just call, fear, lack and so forth, those are all forms of darkness. What the actual purpose of this confrontation with darkness is. It is to help us grow. This is very, very important to understand, because if you can reframe this and say, okay, my early confrontation with this scary stuff, ultimately then down the road, I don't know how old you are now, Debbie, but at some point in your life, gave you enough courage and enough curiosity, wanting to take charge of your life. Why and why this is so different for each and every one of us, and how this is playing out, and the timelines and so forth, that has a lot to do with karma. So karma is an aspect that you could say we, before we incarnate, we choose a certain type of journey. So our soul self wants to learn a particular lesson. In your case, how to take your own power. In Cindy's case, how to tune into abundance. In Jared's case, you know, how to understand fully what you are. In Matthew's case, yeah, how to get out of your head into your heart and create more space for yourself in that way. And these are just my renderings of this here right now, because you were so generous to share your personal journeys. But if you look at it this way, that your soul self now, or your higher self, picks those particular negative experience, confrontations with darkness for you, yeah, it's tailored to the exact, yeah, quote unquote training program for this lifetime. If you can arrive at that point, if you can see it that way, you have arrived in your higher consciousness, because now you can recognize, you know, what it is that you need to learn.
Yes.
You know, recognize.
Very true. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. For
Thank
all
you.
of us. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, thank you all for sharing, guys. This is an extremely important discussion. An extremely important conversation to have, because it is one that puzzles all of us. Why me? Why do I have to experience this? What is the purpose of this? Yeah. It requires your higher consciousness to answer that. You cannot answer your ego mind. It will not be able to see that. It will not be able to decode that. It requires your willingness to strive, yeah, for other perspectives, for more neutrality, yeah, and for wanting to understand. Yeah, what is this? What's behind that? Yeah, what could this possibly be for? What can I learn from this? How can I do better? So evolution happens through learning from falsehood. And our job here, yeah, in this life's experience, is to learn to discern. First, we have to learn, you know, the difference between what is constructive and what is destructive, so that we can then begin to learn to discern truth. Yeah? What is truth? What is not true? What is love? What is not love? What is freedom? What is not freedom? What is God and what is not God? And that's how our consciousness evolves. By learning through falsehood, through the confrontation with untruth, unlove, and unfreedom. Through the confrontation with the mystery, if you will. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for sharing here. This is very personal, and you know, it goes exactly, you know, where we want to go here with this study group. Yeah, to share our deeper thoughts, our deeper insights with one another, so that we can also learn from one another. Yeah. That is then sort of the higher form of learning, an even higher form of consciousness. Yes, same here, Cindy. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for going with this, and I hope that we will have many, many more of these conversations. All right, so this Wednesday, the energy talk will actually be a true self talk. Please remember this. We have the free Connect with Your True Self energy healing session at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, followed by the reflection, the session reflection, the true self-talk, as I call it, at 12 p.m. Yeah, feel free to come to the true self session, invite others. If you will, it's open for everyone and free. And for those of you in the United States, happy Thanksgiving. Yeah, and I hope that you have many of these beautiful and grateful experiences this week while we're going through all the stuff that is shaking through our societies right now. As, what do you think? Yes, the revelation of untruth. Our societies are going through the confrontation with untruth in order to learn how to discern truth. Yeah. So it's all good, guys. It's needed. Yeah. We need to go through this as individuals as well as collective. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Stay conscious, and I see you on Wednesday for the Connect with Your True Self energy session and true self-talk. And bye-bye, everyone.